Hello, everyone. Welcome to Storyteller Spotlight. I'll just spend the first few minutes chatting here to make sure everyone gets their sound right and everyone can hear and you can troubleshoot. Go over to the chat and change your chat to everyone. And then tell us where you're watching from. And if you have students with you in the room, tell us how many students are watching with you and how old they are. Welcome, everyone. For those just jumping on, go ahead and go over to the chat and tell us where you're watching from and how many students are with you, what their grade levels are. Everyone can also spend a minute finding the Q&A button on the bottom of the screen. That is where we will do questions. If your class prepared questions in advance, you can certainly put those in. Ideally, put them in one at a time and tell us which student, if you as the teacher are putting them in for the student, tell us the name of the student that asked that question or the name of the class that asked that question. All right, welcome everyone. We have a huge group today. We're so excited that you're all here. All right, I see we've got some questions already getting in. That's great. You can put your questions in. Just tell us into the Q&A part. Just tell us who asked the question, the student's name or your name if you're the student writing in. All right, we've got 1 o'clock Central Time, so let's get started. Welcome everyone to Mackin's Storyteller Spotlight. My name is Kaya Heisey. I am from Mackin. I'm very excited today to have Gordon Korman live with us today. Our special thanks to Scholastic for helping put this together, as well as giving away some free books. So at the end of the program, we'll take all the registrants and we'll put them in a hat and we'll pick some winners and we'll send you some copies of the book. Let me quickly introduce Gordon. Gordon Korman is the author of 100 middle grade and young adult books. He has had multiple books reach #1 on the New York Times bestseller list and has received countless awards and honors. His books have sold over 30 million copies and have been translated into more than 30 languages. Each year, he travels extensively, visiting schools and libraries, bringing his trademark humor and adventurous style to readers everywhere. I am going to hand it over to Gordon to greet you all and do a little read aloud from his new book.
All right. Well, thanks, Kaya, and thanks everybody for coming. I see so many different states and locations, and all over the list. I actually thought I saw a class that I'm going to be visiting in person in the next, actually in the next week. So if I've got that right, we'll see if soon. So mixed up is something a little different. So it's about a couple of kids. Now, they're not friends. They don't know each other at all. They don't go to the same school. And they suddenly become aware that they are getting memories of things that they are 99% sure never happened to them. Almost like they're getting someone else's memories. And they could be really old memories, like, when you're 3 years old and you're holding your mom's hand, but like you're really, really small. So it's way, way up there. And you look up at your mom and she looks down at you and it's a total stranger. Like That's not my mom. Why do I have a memory of somebody else's mother? But it can also be kind of physical things. For example, one of the kids takes martial arts and is pretty into it. The memory of how to do it goes to the other person. Like, how weird is that? That you suddenly know you have this ability that you shouldn't actually have. So, one of the kids is named Reef, and Reef has been living with family friends since his mom died. He shares a room with Declan, and that is less than ideal because Declan really, truly hates him. So here's a little of mixed up. When I let myself in, I don't toss my backpack on the kitchen counter like every other kid. That's something you do at home. Instead, I drag it upstairs to the room I share with Declan. That isn't home either, but it's the closest thing I have right now. I shove the bag under my bed where Declan won't see it. I used to leave it leaning against the deck, but he filled it with jello once. I don't make that mistake anymore. My eyes are instantly drawn to the small framed photograph of mom that I keep on my nightstand. I see it every day, but now it seems like the most important thing I own. If my phone had gotten confiscated at school today and then broken or lost, this would have been my only picture of my mother. I sit down on the bed and cradle the plastic frame like it's delicate crystal. Not sure how long I've been zoned out in that position when the book comes flying in at me. It knocks the picture out of my hands, sending it spiraling through the air. I can hear the glass break as it hits the wall. Shocked, I look up. Declan is in the doorway, a laughing sneer on his smarmy face. The next thing I know, I'm up on my feet, stalking toward him. As the room around me fades behind a red haze of rage, I throw myself at Declan. I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. It's pure gut reaction. As I bear down on him, my knee comes up toward my chest and my leg snaps out, my foot catching him right below the jaw. The impact is so great that he lifts off the floor and lands flat on his back, several feet out in the hall. He lies there, stunned, and I back away, my thoughts whirling. Why did I do that? This kid belongs here and I don't. If I get myself kicked out of this house, what then? Declan gets to his feet, which is a good thing, I guess, because it means I didn't really hurt him. You'll pay for that, he promises in a low voice. Then he turns his back and stomps downstairs. In spite of myself, I can't help feeling a twinge of satisfaction at the mental picture of my foot connecting with his jaw. The happy moment passes quickly, and I sit trembling on the edge of my bed. It was great to deck Declan, but how did I do it? That kick was something straight out of a martial arts movie. I don't know martial arts. I try to relive the moment. My knee rose up, my body balanced, my legs struck out, but I didn't make it happen. I wouldn't know how. It's more like my body did it without me, like muscle memory, where you never forget how to ride a bike or swing a baseball bat. Except that muscle memory only works when you know how to do the thing in the first place. What's happening to me? Um, just think of how crazy it would be to suddenly know and remember things that you shouldn't. And it gets to the point where these kids have to kind of use these false memories as clues to track the other person down and kind of figure out what's happening to them and how can we stop it. I hope everybody enjoys Mixed Up.
Okay, thank you, Gordon. All right, so let's do some questions. We're gonna run the questions, we're gonna run the Q&A through the Q&A button. So go down and find that. If you put them in the chat, I won't see them. You can certainly put lots of stuff in the chat and I'll share everything you put in the chat with Gordon, but put questions in the Q&A. All right, I'll disappear. You'll only hear my voice, and then we will get some of your questions asked here. All right. First question. Um, uh, Izzy from Charleston asked, when did you start getting interested in writing?
Oh, wow. Thanks for that question, Izzy. Probably some of you know this, but not everybody. I wrote my first book when I was 12. It was my seventh grade English project. True story. In my middle school, the track and field coach had to teach ELA, and he'd never taught it in his life. So when it came to creative writing, he just sort of blanked and said, okay, work on whatever you want for the rest of the year. It was February, right? So from February to June, we had a class period like every day to write one story. And that's how I wrote my first book.
Elodie from Mankato, Minnesota asked, have you ever felt like giving up on a book?
Um, Elodie, I've given up on a lot of ideas because I find that not all ideas turn into stories, right? Like an idea can be anything, but a story sort of has a beginning and a middle and an end. So I give up on ideas if I can't come up with, the beginning, kind of not exactly, but what kind of ending I want, and maybe two or three big scenes in the middle. But once I hit that point and I start writing the book, I pretty much finish it. I don't really give up on books once I've gotten them started.
Next question comes from Sahar. He or she asks, what is your process when writing a book?
What is my process? So it's kind of what I just talked about a little bit, right? Like once I have that beginning, middle, end sort of laid out in my own mind, I'll make an outline and I will send it to my editor at the publishing company, who will kind of, either tweak it or sort of say, yeah, let's do it. And then I put together the first draft, and I kind of write it straight through. Although most times I'm juggling a couple of other projects too, because while I'm writing a book now, there's the last book, which is kind of going through, rewriting and revising and editing. And then I'm also sort of planning what's going to be next. But it's not super complicated. I mean, once I make an outline, I pretty much write the book straight through.
Hayden is curious if if you weren't writing books, what would you do instead?
You know what? Is it Hayden or Caden?
Hayden.
Caden. So that I find like the most terrifying question, Caden, just because like if it had not been for that seventh grade English project, I don't know if I ever would have become a writer. I actually before my seventh grade project, I always got better grades in math and science than English. So I have a feeling I'd be more of a sciency, maybe techie kind of guy. Um, but who knows? When I was 2 years old, I wanted to be a dog when I grew up. And my parents say that I actually used to eat dinner under the table because I thought you could become a dog the way you become like a shortstop or a lawyer or whatever.
Colleen asked if you could be any character from your books, who would you be?
Wow. It's Colleen. Um, there's been so many, right? My newest book, Slugfest, is actually my 103rd overall book. Uh, if I had to pick one character, I really I wrote a book a few years ago called Unplugged, and the main character is this kid, Jet Baronoff, who is almost like, I guess my what if for Jet was, what if your dad invented Google or like a gigantic company like Google? So you're almost you know, like tech royalty, right? And I think it was a fascinating character to write just because when I first started, I was almost jealous of my own character, right? Because he's rich and famous, family, celebrities. But the more I thought about it, he's really the loneliest kid in the world. He's almost too rich and famous to have a normal life. So he spends this summer at this wellness center, the oasis of mind and body wellness. That summer, no matter how much he hates it, is the best chance Jet will ever have to be a normal kid with normal friends and a normal life.
Mac is wondering, who is your role model?
Well, I grew up in Canada, so most of my role models when I was a kid are kind of hockey players. We're very, very hockey obsessed in the Toronto area. But the older I got, I just kind of really, really appreciate people who do a good job at life. You know what I mean? Like they are good family members, they're good parents, they're good brothers and sisters, kids. That is something that I've come to appreciate way, way more than like celebrities and presidents and superstars.
Natalie is wondering, does personal experience inspire your books?
Natalie, it's a good question. I feel like I use personal experience, but probably not as much as some other authors do. So for me, books are like a combination between personal experience, kind of what if thinking, and a little bit of research. But I do base characters on friends and family members all the time. There's always a little bit of experience or reality in every one of my books.
JB asks, are you friends with any other authors?
I am friends with a lot of other kids book writers, um, because that's who I sort of see the most. We do the same events, we go to the same conferences and book festivals. So I pretty good friends with Stuart Gibbs from Spy School fame, Sarah Milnowski, right? Whatever After, Max Brallier, Last Kids on Earth. I did a multi-author series called The 39 Clues. Probably most famously, our book one was written by Rick Riordan, right? The creator of Percy Jackson. Peter Larangis, Jude Watson, all friends of mine from 39 Clues.
Mrs. R's class is wondering if you're planning sequels to any of your books.
Oh, so lately, Mrs. R's class, I've been writing a lot of standalone novels, but I do have a couple of like ungifted and super gifted, and I've got an idea I really love called hyper gifted for a third book in the sort of ungifted series.
In that same vein, Bree Lee wants to know if you're currently working on another book and if you can give us a sneak peek into what you're working on.
Oh, sure. Well, actually, my next book is already done. It's called Faker, and it's the story of a kid who is growing up in a family of professional con artists. See if I must have a copy here somewhere. Hang on one second. Let me reach for it. Oh, this is what the cover of Faker is going to look like. It's a cool cover, right? I'm really fascinated at how the artists come up with these cover designs. When you're a con artist, you're always faking and lying and being really kind of duplicitous. And so the image of joke glasses, with the joke nose and mustache. Um, it's just a perfect image for the cover of this book, but it's something I never would have thought of. By the way, if you're noticing that the fake nose part looks very much like my real nose, that is not on purpose. I was not the model for this nose.
Nevia asks if you handwrite any of your stories or if you type them all on the computer first.
Yeah, great question. I used to, because when I got started in seventh grade, it was the 1970s. So you couldn't write on a computer or an iPad or a Chromebook. So I wrote my entire first book in cursive on one of those old composition books. In fact, you know what grade I got on my very first book? B plus. They gave me A plus on the story, but they deducted one grade for messiness.
Bella from Davis, California asks, how long does it take to write a book and how do you publish a book?
I mean, these are great questions, Bella. So, on average, it takes me about 4 or 5 months to write a first draft, but that doesn't include rewriting and revising, which, I mean, some books that's really fast, and some books it's very, very slow. Like sometimes the rewriting and revising takes almost as long as writing the book. Um, but nowadays, um, you know, the process, the printing, the production of it, the getting it out to stores, like that kind of stuff, the author's really not involved in that. Like I'm really only in charge of the words part, right? Other people at the publishing company, at distributors, those are the ones who make sure that the rest of the book gets kind of printed and packaged and distributed around.
Corey in sixth grade asks, you write your books in multiple points of view. What inspired you to do this and why do you do this?
Oh, thanks, Corey. I mean, a good call. One of the things that I do with not all, but many of my books is I love to tell the story from multiple points of view, from like different narrators. And I don't know. I mean, it doesn't work for every story, but when it does, it's really, really cool. Because it really gives you a sense of how different people can see the entire world in such different ways. And in fact, I got it from an adult book that I read, way, way back. Uh, and it was sort of about the art scene in New York City in like the 1970s. But every chapter was a different narrator. And some of these people were just so different and so weird that just the way they saw the world made this book incredibly hilarious and cool and laugh out loud funny sometimes. And I was like, dude, I got to try this with one of my own books, and it sort of stuck. I've been doing it ever since.
Miss Mandy's comprehension group asked, we are currently reading The Unteachables. What gave you the idea for the story?
Um, well, first of all, thank you for reading The Unteachables. One of my favorites. So the first Unteachable that I thought of was Parker, because I was doing a school visit in Kansas, and in Kansas, like uh, you can drive at like a really young age. It's sort of a law to help farm kids help out on their, drive tractors and equipment and stuff. So you can get a limited, called a provisional driver's license when you're 14, which means you can get a learning permit when you're 13, right? So not 100 years ago, but right now, there are kids in certain states legally driving their own vehicles every day to middle school. I was like, bruh, I got to write a book about this. And I created this kid, Parker. I named him Parker because he's not the best driver in the world. He is really bad when it comes to parking. But he became the first unteachable, right? The idea that um, a school might try to take all their problems and put them in the same class, like all your rotten apples in one basket, and they create literally the unteachable class.
Uh, Rayla from New York asked, who are your biggest influences? Maybe authors or not sure.
Well, you know what I think is kind of big is so I don't know how many fourth graders we have out there, but maybe some others too. Have you ever read Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing by Judy Blume? So if you can kind of wrap your mind around this, I was actually in fourth grade the year that that book came out. That's how old it is. And I remember it was the first book where I almost feel like I could be one of these characters, right? And it sort of sparked a love of kind of like the old school middle grade that they had when I was a kid, right? Old Judy Blume and Beverly Cleary and the Mad Scientist Club and the Great Brain. But that was super clutch for me because when I was in seventh grade and we got that project, like I kind of could have written anything, but I wrote a sort of classic old school middle grade book because I liked them so much, thanks to the Judy Blooms and Beverly Clearys of the world.
A sixth grade class from North Little Rock, Arkansas asked, why did you choose to set Unplugged in Arkansas?
Oh, why did I choose to set Unplugged in Arkansas? Well, thanks for that, you guys. Um, I think it was the kind of like the alligator connection, right? I wanted a place, I was looking at a map and I was looking for rivers that would start kind of in the middle of the country, but ultimately go down to, kind of gator country, like the Gulf of Mexico and Louisiana and Mississippi and the Delta down there. And I found a set of rivers that I liked in Arkansas. And Unplugged was kind of inspired by my editor, who used to go every year to a wellness retreat like the Oasis of Mind and Body Wellness. Um, and, she called it the healthiest place on earth. Like, you guys, it's got to be, right? Like, all the food is health food and, the exercise 24/7 and spa treatments and meditation and whatever. But the other thing about it is it was unplugged, no technology, right? Like no phones, no TVs, no iPads, no computers. If it's got a screen, it's out, right? And as much as she loved it, I really didn't want to go to a place like that. Um, and so the what if almost wrote itself, right? Like, what if a group of kids got sent to an unplugged wellness center where you can't have a phone or look at a screen? And when I thought up the story, the perfect place to put it was Arkansas.
Carson from St. Joe, Missouri asked, what is the funniest story you have about writing or publishing your books?
Um, I don't know if anything is anything is really that hilarious. I mean, I always find it kind of funny when my books get translated into other languages and sort of the titles and the storylines don't exactly go. Like I wrote a book called Restart, and Restart was just done in Korean. You guys, you will never guess what the title of Korean Restart actually means. Ready? Rude boy flying. I was like, what? I mean, how could you possibly get from Restart to Rude Boy Fly? Well, it does sort of make sense. Like the main character is a bully. I guess bullies are kind of rude. And he has this accident. He falls off his roof, right? So if you can get from bully to rude and from falling to flying, I guess that kind of gets you from Restart to Rude Boy Fly. But it's sort of bizarre, like how it kind of goes. I wrote a book a long time ago called Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. And when they tried to translate that title into French, it actually turned out to say, Teller of untruths, your trousers have combusted. Right. So I'm always loving like the stories about how these attempts at translation kind of go off the rails.
Okay, here is our last question. What is your favorite book? Not one that you've written.
Oh, favorite book by someone else. So I'm a huge fan of the original The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Maybe many of you will read it in middle school or definitely high school. In kids' books, I love Jack Gantos's books. I'm a Jerry Spinelli fan. I love Harry Potter, and gotta give props to good old Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing.
Okay, well, our time is up. There were so many questions, like thousands, and so I could only ask a few, but thank you everyone. They were awesome questions. Now is a great time to go over to the chat and say thank you to Gordon for being here and send any messages you want to send him. I will send him the entire chat so he can read everything that you write to him. Just a quick plug for next time. Next month, we have Matt De La Pena coming to do a read aloud and Q&A, so make sure your teacher gets you signed up for that.
Thanks so much for coming, everybody, and thanks, Kaya, for making this so much fun.
Of course. Thanks, everyone. Bye.